Hey everyone, me Kevin here. In this video, we're going to talk about timing for the next stimulus checks, inflation, the eviction crisis, Larry Kudlow on heroes pay, and updates from Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and Trump regarding negotiations. Welcome everyone to this Meet Kevin Report, where I report news that makes you money. On the eviction ban, Donald Trump said yesterday that we are going to stop evictions, that there will be no evictions. Yet today, Larry Kudlow said, well, it's not exactly an eviction ban. And this is a big problem because when we don't actually have an eviction ban that lasts long enough for people to catch up with their back rent, then what happens is landlords file evictions against tenants. We're expecting 3 to 4 times as many evictions this year as in a normal year. And when that many more people get evicted, people have to move, their credit gets shot, and we end up seeing real estate pricing get hurt as rental prices fall and real estate prices fall. That could potentially lead to a foreclosure crisis. In other words, we go down a very bad slippery slope if we don't solve the eviction problem. And right now, we have not solved the eviction problem. New inflation data for July came out today. Inflation is up 1% comparing this year to last year. And if we look at January, we're seeing inflation at a rate of about 1.6%, still well below the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation target. A lot of the reason we saw some inflation was actually due to gas and food prices, which have been skyrocketing, but we also have seen rent, medical care prices, vehicle prices, insurance prices, and the costs for phone and internet services pick up, which is not exactly what we need during a crisis. On stimulus checks, it looks like we're all but waiting for September before we actually see any checks. Every day that we lose without negotiations between Republicans and Democrats is another day that we're less likely to see stimulus checks in August. I wish I could write a headline about approved stimulus check, which there are many clickbait titles like that out there, but the reality is just because we have an agreement on stimulus checks doesn't mean the stimulus checks are actually going to happen. And here's the problem. If Congress doesn't pass this next stimulus package, which should include the $1,200 stimulus check before September, Congress will end up negotiating the next stimulus package at the same time they negotiate the new budget for our country on September 7th. The government has to pass a new budget in September to avoid a new government shutdown, which unfortunately will also probably be the absolute worst time to debate stimulus checks because stimulus checks are expensive. This means the closer we get to September, the rougher things are looking for stimulus checks, which honestly, this is just a slap in the face. At first, we were told no second stimulus checks. Then we were told yes, second stimulus checks. Then we were told bigger and more generous checks are coming. Now we can't even get a dime in checks, even though everybody in Congress, or at least enough people in Congress, seem to agree that another round of stimulus checks are a good idea. This is so frustrating because it honestly makes me vomit. Even when there's an agreement to do something, they can't seem to get it done. Democrat and Republican leaders have not spoken since last Friday. Instead, Democrat and Republicans are just using the media to complain about one another. Mitch McConnell said it would serve the nation better if Democrats acted like this was a country. Chuck Schumer said President Donald Trump and Senate Republicans say a tax cut for wealthy investors will help fight the COVID crisis, but think that $600 per week is too much for 30 million unemployed Americans. Chuck Schumer said they simply don't understand the magnitude of the problems on Main Street. Unfortunately, to me, this is literally like two people playing on a playground on recess with their backs to each other, and right now they're grumpy and standing there with their arms crossed, talking into the air because they refuse to turn around and talk to each other. We all know they can hear each other because they all listen to each other on the media, but they refuse to acknowledge the other side and actually talk. This morning, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin did just that. And he talked to us about how Republicans have agreed with Democrats on passing legislation and getting money for schools and childcare and a second round of PPP and stimulus checks and liability protections. But Democrats are holding up the next stimulus bill because they want money for state and local governments. To which Steve Mnuchin says, why don't we just pass a bill now on the things we agree on and then come back later for the other things? To this, Democrats say, no, we need a full bill to properly fund state and local government services like firefighters and ambulances and provide money to hospitals and for testing and tracing and treatment. We're in a pandemic. We need more money in the hands of the people. And Democrats seem to be worried that if Democrats agree to a partial bill, then all of their leverage to get all of their other desires done will evaporate. Democrats feel that the administration, that is the Trump administration, will get punished if a deal doesn't happen. So Democrats believe they may as well negotiate strong on a deal that's good for Democrat priorities, because if no deal gets done, it'll be seen as the Republicans' fault. Nobody knows if that's actually what will happen, but that seems to be the current belief. Democrats are seeking more money for unemployment pay, more money for the people in terms of unemployment pay. They're seeking heroes pay, and they're seeking more money for testing, treatment, and tracing than Republicans are. It also seems like the Democrats know that if they agree to a partial bill, it'll probably be the last bill that gets passed. Even though Treasury Secretary Mnuchin says, hey, look, we could pass this bill now, and then we could always do a phase 5, 6, 7, and 8 stimulus bill, Democrats appear to be hearing, give Republicans what they want now, and then we'll ice you later when you come back for the other bills. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin says that Republicans have bent, and they've offered $150 billion for state and local governments. However, to Democrats, that's not enough. Democrats are insisting on about $900 billion for funding for state and local governments. On heroes pay, those in the White House feel that the executive orders will help stimulate the economy, especially via the payroll tax cut, which Larry Kudlow now had the balls to say that a payroll tax cut would effectively be a $1,200 wage increase for heroes who worked throughout the pandemic. AKA, he's literally trying to brand the hated payroll tax cut as a stimulus check for heroes. Larry, you have got to be kidding me. And this is exactly why the coupon code for all my programs down below and the YouTube course still on pre-sale is Larry. Because I just feel like Larry is what you say when you're talking about a clueless guy. Larry! Larry! No offense to anybody named Larry, it's an Impractical Jokers joke. Also, most businesses don't seem to think that they'll take the payroll tax deduction or sort of this waiver of the payroll tax because of uncertainty and complexity about it actually getting forgiven or not. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin says they'll do what they can to provide certainty to waive the payroll tax cut because he believes businesses will take the benefit. And Donald Trump says he'll work on waiving the payroll tax cut immediately, and if he gets reelected, he'll work on cutting the payroll tax cut entirely. On capital gains, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin says cutting the capital gains rate will stimulate the economy tremendously. For the next few years, we should reduce the capital gains rate. But legislation is needed to do that. And that creates a little bit of an issue because legislation and Congress don't seem to be things that actually work these days. That's because they're all on recess. Trump, on the other hand, feels emboldened by his executive actions and does not see the need to continue negotiations right now. Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, feels everything has been addressed with the exception of small business funding, which does require legislation to get done. Well, folks, there is your stimulus update for today. If you've appreciated this update, please consider sharing this video. Check out the YouTube course on pre-sale down below. Remember, you can get life insurance and 2 free stocks in as little as 5 minutes via the links down below. Just make sure you deposit $100 with Webull and you'll get your second free stock and get that life insurance. It's super easy to do and you can Apple Pay or Android Pay for it. Thank you so much for watching and we'll see you next time.